right. So much going on in crypto and NFTs these days. It's almost hard to keep up, new ways to invest, new trends popping up in the NFT marketplace. Things are moving fast.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see what's been happening. Even just looking at like the past few days in March 2025, there's some pretty significant things developing.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we're diving into today. You've got a fantastic set of sources, daily newsletters, all about crypto and NFTs from March 17th to March 21st, 2025. And
Yeah.
our goal today is to help you cut through the noise and get right to what really matters, the key takeaways, so you can see what's happening in these markets without getting bogged down in all the information.
Yeah, we'll try to get to the nifty thoughts about what could have broader implications.
Exactly. We want to help you understand what these developments actually mean.
Yeah.
So let's start with something that has the potential to really change how people interact with crypto, and that is prediction markets on Robinhood. They are partnering with Kalshi. What makes this such a big deal?
Well, what's particularly interesting is the potential to onboard a whole new wave of crypto users. Um, Prediction markets themselves aren't completely new, right? Platforms like Polymarket have seen real activity, especially around major events like the 2024 elections.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that.
But it still felt very crypto native, right? You have to
Yeah.
really be familiar with using wallets and interacting with these sort of decentralized applications.
It wasn't very user-friendly.
Exactly. And that's where the Robinhood Kalshi partnership is potentially game-changing. One of the nifty thoughts in the newsletters was that it combines the ease of use that Robinhood is known for in traditional investing with that blockchain-backed transparency that Kalshi is bringing to the table.
Yeah, that's huge because if you think about it, Robinhood really did make investing much more accessible for a wider audience.
Yeah, and I think the big takeaway there is it lowers the barrier to entry. For a lot of people who've been curious about crypto, maybe even about prediction markets, but have been intimidated by like the technical aspects of actually getting involved.
So someone who's comfortable trading stocks on Robinhood can now potentially participate in a prediction market without even necessarily knowing that they're interacting with blockchain technology.
That's the potential. It's all about abstracting away the complexity so they can engage in a way that feels very familiar and user-friendly.
Right, they don't even have to think about it.
This news came out March 18th. It'll be interesting to see how many people actually adopt it, but if it catches on, it could really bring a new wave of users into the crypto space.
This actually ties in really nicely with another area where we see traditional finance and crypto getting closer, and that is ETFs. And it's not just Bitcoin and Ethereum anymore. We are seeing Solana starting to enter the ETF arena.
Yeah, so Volatility Shares LLC launched the first Solana futures ETFs around March 20th. They actually launched two Sol-Z, which is a one-to-one standard futures ETF, and Solo, which offers 2 times leveraged exposure. So just something to be aware of. It is a futures ETF. It's not a spot ETF, meaning it doesn't directly hold Solana. It invests in futures contracts that track Solana's price.
Okay, so it's a step removed from directly owning the asset.
Right.
But the newsletters seem to suggest that this is still a significant step, potentially leading to spot ETFs in the future. Why is that such a big deal?
I think the big nifty thought there is demonstrating demand. If these Solana futures ETFs perform well initially, that could be a signal to the big ETF issuers like BlackRock and others that there is actual lasting demand for investment products based on altcoins, not just Bitcoin and Ethereum.
Yeah, if there's enough interest and trading volume in these Solana ETFs, it kind of shows that there is an appetite for more diverse crypto investment options.
Yeah,
And that could lead to broader institutional adoption of other cryptocurrencies.
exactly. And that increased accessibility could in turn generate more interest in the underlying assets, potentially driving prices up.
So that leads us to our next topic, which is sort of a whole other level of a new kind of investment vehicle. We're seeing news about Canary Capital filing for an ETF that includes PicYoYo and Pudgy Penguins NFTs. This was announced around March 21st, and that seems like a whole other ballgame.
It's really an industry first and really highlights, I think, the evolution of crypto investing.
Yeah.
Right? We saw how the recent crypto rally was significantly boosted by the ease with which people who maybe aren't deeply involved in crypto could just buy Bitcoin through a spot ETF.
Right, just by using their normal brokerage accounts.
Right.
Yeah, that was a huge factor for Bitcoin.
But the crucial thing here is that there needs to be institutional demand for something like a Pudgy Penguins. NFT is still an open question, but there's no denying that there's strong community and retail interest around the brand. They have huge social media presence. They've had success with physical
So
merchandise.
the idea is that if people who are already fans of Pudgy Penguins see this ETF, they might be more likely to invest.
Right.
And that could create that demand that validates this kind of product.
That's the theory. If this ETF is able to attract significant interest from individual investors, it could be a huge validation and potentially pave the way for other alternative crypto ETFs investment vehicles focused on these more niche crypto assets that aren't like the established blue chips. It's important to remember, as the newsletters point out, that SEC approval is still pending. It's a significant hurdle.
Yeah, but even just the market reaction to the news was pretty interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The floor price reportedly jumped above 10 ETH following the ETF filing. That shows you there's some real excitement within that community.
Yeah, it really highlights the power of making these assets more accessible and also the existing community behind these projects.
Now let's shift gears a little bit because this next topic is one that carries a bit more potential concern. We're seeing news about Strategy, Michael Saylor's company, launching a new perpetual preferred stock offering. This is called SACE-TRF Strife, announced around March 19th. And the analysis in one of the newsletters raised some potential red flags here. What's the story?
Well, what's really noteworthy and potentially a bit concerning is the structure of this offering. It's a perpetual preferred stock, so there's no set date for repayment. It offers a fixed annual dividend of 10%, which importantly increases by 1% each year. It goes unpaid up to a maximum of 18%, and those who hold STRF have a priority claim of $100 per share if the company is liquidated.
Wow, that does sound pretty aggressive. The newsletter even mentioned some concerns that Strategy may be in need of cash, especially given the less than stellar performance of their regular stock MSTR.
Yeah, that's the core of the concern here. The pretty attractive terms of the offering suggest that they might be in a position where they really need to secure capital. And the nifty thought in the newsletter is basically expressing worry that if Strategy was to face liquidation, this could have a significant negative impact on the price of Bitcoin.
Which is ironic because they have been such a major force in pushing Bitcoin's price higher
Right.
through their consistent large Bitcoin purchases. Yes, exactly. They've played a crucial role in absorbing selling pressure in the market, signaling a long-term belief in Bitcoin. So this possibility of a forced sale of their Bitcoin holdings, because of financial pressures at Strategy, creates a unique kind of risk for the market. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. Their buying has been a tailwind. Their potential selling could be a significant headwind.
Yeah. All right, let's turn our attention directly to the NFT market. One of the newsletters from March 17th actually offered a bit of optimism. What was driving that positive sentiment?
The hopeful sign came from the successful launch of two quite different NFT projects on Ethereum Layer 1, which is the main Ethereum network Good Vibes Club, and Masks Luci. And what was interesting is these projects appeal to different parts of the NFT community. So Good Vibes Club is more of a hype profile picture project, whereas Sam Spratt's Masks of Luci are really targeted towards art collectors.
So the fact that both of these were successful after a period of, we've seen less successful mints happening, especially on a newer platform called Abstract L2, that's a good sign. Yeah, the fact that different types of NFT projects were finding buyers suggests that there might be a broader, renewed interest in NFTs across different categories, not just one specific trend that's taking off.
Right. It's not just all hype. It's not all art. It's a mix.
Right. And the newsletter mentioned that Masks of Luci prices reached as high as $18,000, so there was some strong demand there.
And just for some context here, Layer 1 refers to the main Ethereum blockchain, whereas Layer 2 solutions are designed to help Ethereum scale and reduce transaction costs.
Right.
So these successful launches on Layer 1 are notable. And it's worth mentioning, too, that Sam Spratt's Masks of Luci are actually scheduled to be featured in a museum exhibition at the Toledo Museum of Art in the summer of 2025. So even further blurring the lines between digital art and the traditional artwork.
Yeah, that's a big validation for the project and for NFT art in general.
Now, the newsletters also had these daily rundowns of the NFT market. They had sections called Quick Stats and Top NFT Sales. What were some of the key trends or interesting movements that you noticed between March 17th and March 21st?
Looking at the daily top gainers and losers, we saw quite a bit of movement across different collections and blockchains.
Yeah.
On Ethereum projects like Mad Lads and Captains experienced significant gains on some days, while collections like Milady Maker and the Bored Ape Yacht Club saw some price dips.
Yeah, and then, of course, Pudgy Penguins was frequently on that list as a top gainer, most likely because of the ETF news later in the week.
Right, right.
We also saw some activity on the Solana blockchain,
Yeah.
with projects like Mad Lads and Tensorians showing some notable price changes, even Bitcoin-based NFTs like Quantum Cats and Bitcoin Puppets had some ups and downs.
Yeah, and looking at those top NFT sales, consistently what we see there are those high-value, well-established NFTs, Autoglyphs, CryptoPunks, Bored Ape Yacht Club. Those consistently show up there, which indicates to me that even if the overall market sentiment is a bit shaky at times, there is still a significant level of trading and demand at that higher end of the market for those blue chip assets.
Those OG projects.
Yeah, exactly. And so those sales kind of remind us that there's a core group of collectors and investors who are actively engaged with those established projects.
It really is just a reminder that the NFT market is not just one thing, you know?
Yeah.
Different types of NFTs, different blockchains all seem to have their own unique dynamics and trends.
Exactly. And I think the success of those Ethereum Layer 1 mints alongside the ongoing activity in the blue chip NFT space suggests that while there might have been a slowdown in certain areas, there's still pockets of strong interest and potential for growth within the NFT ecosystem.
Okay, so let's finish up by touching on some of the other interesting crypto developments that were mentioned in these newsletters. There was actually quite a bit going on.
It was.
It's good to get that broader context. You know, what else is happening beyond the main topics we discussed?
Absolutely. I think one of the interesting things was there's going to be an upcoming documentary on Vitalik Buterin, the co-founder of Ethereum. So that will likely bring a greater understanding of Ethereum to the masses.
Yeah.
The Trump family's crypto project reportedly closing a $550 million token sale, and their significant stake in the net income. I think also highlights the continued interest in celebrity-endorsed crypto ventures.
And then MicroStrategy, of course, continuing to add to their Bitcoin holdings, even Metaplanet issuing bonds to buy more BTC. So we continue to see that trend of companies adding Bitcoin to their treasury.
Yeah, and various filings and amendments for crypto ETFs from different companies just shows that there's increasing interest in more diverse ways to invest in crypto.
And then we also saw some things happening globally that are very interesting. Lawmakers in Brazil proposing to allow salaries to be paid in Bitcoin, another kind of step towards adoption, right?
Yeah, and Ripple filed for something called Ripple Custody in the U.S., so they're looking to expand their offerings.
And then, as always, we have developments within various blockchain ecosystems, Optimism, Aptos Solana, new programs, partnerships, always things happening there.
Binance came out and shared some of their views on AI agents and crypto, which reflects that increasing overlap between artificial intelligence and crypto.
Right, AI is everywhere.
Everywhere.
Even in crypto.
Yeah, so we also saw a significant Bitcoin whale increase their short position by a lot and then closed it for profit later in the week. So it really just shows you that high-stakes trading continues in the market.
Absolutely. And then another significant event was the Federal Reserve holding interest rates steady. So that's always a macroeconomic factor that plays a role in the appetite for risk assets like crypto. So it's pretty incredible when you look at it. We're seeing traditional finance getting more and more connected to the crypto world through things like ETFs prediction markets on more familiar platforms like Robinhood. The NFT market's still volatile, but we are seeing signs of life in certain segments. And these major players like Strategy, they continue to have a significant impact on the price of Bitcoin sometimes in ways that carry potential risks.
Yeah, those are some great takeaways. I think these past few days have really highlighted how quickly and how much this space is evolving. It's not just small incremental changes. We're seeing the potential for some fundamental shifts in how people interact with and invest in digital assets.
So what does this all mean for you, our listener? Well, whether you're a seasoned crypto expert or just starting to get curious, these developments represent really important trends and potential opportunities in the crypto and NFT space that are worth paying attention to.
You know, understanding these shifts, the growing interest from traditional finance, the changing dynamics of the NFT market, the influence and risks of major players, all of that can really help you navigate this landscape with a better understanding of what's happening now and what might be coming next.
Yeah. So here's a final thought to ponder. How do you envision your own engagement with these markets changing in the months ahead, with the increased integration of traditional finance and decentralized technologies?
Yeah.
Or consider this with all these different ETF proposals we're seeing, from Bitcoin and Ethereum to potentially NFTs. What other novel crypto-related assets do you think we might see packaged into these investment vehicles in the future? Food for thought. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
Thanks for joining us.
We'll see you next time.
See ya.
Bye.